All right. You ready?
I have my coffee. I'm ready to go.
Let's go. Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Vila Bianca.
It's July 28th, 2019. It's season 3, episode 30. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me on again
Absolutely.
so soon.
Well, I mean, last week was really, really good. Before we jump into calls, I did want to tell you that one of our calls, Kamal, last week, I mean, after the episode, I had to go home and lay down for a little while. Like that just hit me. And not only that, but I've been getting PMs almost every day from people who say, hey, I'm an atheist, I'm a vet, this really hit me. Kamal, if you're watching, shoot us an email, mail@talkheathen.com. That's mail@talkheathen.com. I have a whole bunch of people that really, really would love to get in touch with you if you're interested. And also, just kind of as general announcements before we jump into things, we are part of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. We subsist on donations, and it's $1 and $2 donations generally. If you'd like to become a patron, we thank our top 5 patrons right around 2/3 of the way through the show. And yes, I do see and update it. So if you would like to have your name shouted out in the top 5 during this episode, you can go ahead and go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. Was there anything you wanted to address before we hopped in?
No, I'm ready to go.
Oh, you're ready to rock.
I'm here.
All right, then let's start with Mike in California. Mike, you're talking to Eric and V. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me on as the first caller.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
We're doing very well. I think I'm over-caffeinated.
Likewise. This is going to be fun.
But other than that, just fun. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, you know, I guess I'd like to talk about a whole variety of things. I've called on to the Atheist Experience several times. You know, I've talked to Matt and Tracy, and that's kind of how I came upon your show as well. Okay. Yeah, and just wanted to give you all a shout out. I think what you guys are doing is great. You know, just getting out there and talking about what you think and what you believe. I think that's the first step to everything, just to start. You know, so whatever disagreements we might have, you know, that's how I think about, you know, you guys. I don't want you guys to think that I look down upon you in any way. You're definitely doing a lot more than I am with my life. So kudos there.
It feels like you're setting up a nice cushion for us. Thank you. That's very kind. So what's up?
So, yeah, well, you know, I've been around the world. I'm Korean American. You know, I have an MBA degree. You know, I'm pretty educated, and I'm out here in Silicon Valley. I work in tech, so it's not like I'm you know, some guy from the, you know, hills who, you know, goes to church every day, stuff like that. But you know, I've come to had a recent experience where I guess you could call it supernatural, where you can, just to make it short, I believe I saw heaven. And when I started looking into all these different researches into like near-death experiences and what people are saying about heaven, and actually reading what's written in the Bible, I'm really seeing a lot of undeniable coherences that you can't really disregard. But I'm not asking you to believe all of that, really. That's just kind of a preface of where I'm coming from.
Sure. I mean, I'd like to respond to that really quickly, though. And that is that, yes, near-death experiences are a thing. I don't know, were you experiencing a near-death experience at the time?
No, my story is a little bit more complicated. Okay. I had this dream when I was 5 years old. And, just to make it short, I had a dream when I was 5 years old, and I saw heaven, pretty much. I woke up from the dream thinking it was just a dream. I tried to rehab this dream, recite it in my brain for 10 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I grow up, forget about it. Then I fall into, like, what they call, quote-unquote, sin, right? I'm doing drinking, partying, you know, cocaine, all that stuff. And basically, I get married and have a kid, and I'm really struggling with my life and my anger management problems. And so my wife gets really sick.
You're hitting a point of crisis.
She falls into a coma, and I come upon this book about a boy who visited heaven. Yeah. And in that book, he's describing my dream verbatim. right? So that's kind of where my faith becomes like really strong, and I start believing in all of that stuff. And it's just the timing of all of it was really uncanny. And they say like the God works in mysterious ways, right? So, it's not that I'm special in any way, but it's that, like I've hit that rock bottom, and I've gone really the wrong way. And only by doing that is how you can really get to the truth. I think that all of these religious people in church really don't really know what they're believing.
Mike?
Right, go ahead.
Sorry, this is we want a dialogue. This is turning into a monologue.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You touched about the boy who visited heaven, and I know you wanted to jump in on it first. You can say it. I'll just say the guy's name is Alex Malarkey, which is funny.
Yeah.
Very good.
They did. I haven't read the entire article, but I'd suggest you do a little bit of research on, something that was published fairly recently. Well, not too recently.
No, I mean, I know you guys are talking, making reference to him coming out and saying, "Oh, that book," and they retracted that book actually, but
Right.
Because he lied.
Really did real research.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear. It's because he lied.
Well, he retracted the book because his father lied. The book is actually written by his father, not him.
So he says he made it up. Do you understand that?
No.
Okay, Alex Malarkey did not come out and say, I made it up. Is that
No,
right?
he didn't say that.
Okay, look it up. I actually have it right in front of me. TheGuardian.com.
What he said was
regardless,
the Bible is enough.
Regardless.
It says the Bible is enough.
And it's not.
Statement.
If you are being a critical thinker.
Why would he say that
Mike.
Yes, I am.
If you're being a critical thinker, you would know that the Bible is not enough. You should want more. You should have more. If the Bible is true, then there should be extra biblical evidence that'll support that claim.
That's true.
Right? So let's jump in. Mike, please let me finish talking.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah.
No, that's okay. So let's dive back into your experience. You had a dream when you were 5. Is that something that would convince you of anything else, or are you making a special exception for yourself because this is relating to a God? Because I have a whole lot of dreams, but I don't base my reality on it.
Yeah, this was not like any other dream. That's why.
Okay, I have a whole lot of dreams that are very
actually like a dream.
Yeah, how does that map to reality? When do dreams?
I called it a dream.
Okay.
The only reason I called it a dream is because it took place while I went to sleep. After I went to sleep.
That would generally be a dream.
That's what a dream would be. Yeah.
Yeah. But it actually felt like I was there. It was very real, and I saw things that were. I felt this immense joy. It was like I couldn't stop laughing. All right, go ahead.
No. I got you. And this does. I mean,
we don't typically.
We
feel that in dreams.
Actually, lucid dreaming's a thing.
I love lucid dreaming. I've had dreams where I can make myself fly, and I'm aware that I'm doing it, and it's different from my other dreams. But that doesn't mean that I can fly. I wouldn't jump off of a building.
It was. I've also had lucid dreams. It was nothing like a lucid dream. So it was nothing like that. It was actually like an NDE experience. When you listen to people having NDEs, how they explain, there's certain sequences. They'll explain being in like this dark place and they can't see anything.
Yes,
like pitch black darkness.
And that all maps.
Like, there's sequences.
Mike,
I had the exact same.
Absolutely. No, it's okay. It absolutely maps to what happens to a brain when it starts shutting down for lack of oxygen. That's the body's process of dying. That absolutely. And the specifics, you can see that in near-death experiences in other parts of the world where the religions are different, they experience their own version of heaven because that's what they want to map onto it. When you're talking about memory, you're talking about something that's very, very flexible. Being humans, it's very, very easy for that to change. And over time, you can convince yourself of something like that. So I guess where I'm sitting here, and I think I can speak for V and I both, when I say that, would you accept that we don't think that a dream that you had when you were 5 and then had again as an adult is a good reason for us to accept that there's a God?
Yes, I would accept that.
Okay, so when I'm looking at the notes here, it says you wanted to talk about something else. If God appeared to us, would we believe, right?
Yes, that was really my question that would kind of lead into that, was that, if you guys had an experience like I did, would you then, like, not just believe, but would you be sorry for what you've done in the past?
Well, I have had experiences like what you had. When I was a kid, I prophesied. I had visions of God in the room, and it hasn't convinced me at this point. Also, would I be sorry? No. I would, if I could verify that God had indeed appeared to me somehow. Not sure how I would do that, but if I could, then I would say, oh, okay, I believe that you exist now, but not sorry, not going to change the way I live my life.
Right. Yeah, I have a similar, well, I didn't prophesy, but I was a born-again Christian, and I lived that life for quite a while. And one of the things that really kind of hit me was it seems like people have these experiences when they're undergoing an extreme amount of stress or are oxygen deprived or are on drugs, things that we generally would not give credence to because our minds are altered, right? And I don't understand why you would put that there. And for me, if I were to be convinced, or what would convince me, could you give me your question specifically?
Yeah, well, when I had that vision or dream or whatever it was, I was 5 years old. I definitely wasn't intoxicated or dying or any of that. I don't know what it was really. My question though was,
Well, you were 5. Your brain is not fully developed at the age of 5, so.
But even if, no matter what,
it's uncanny that I could have that experience.
I mean, not really. We all have dreams. We all have very realistic dreams.
I mean, it wasn't a dream, is what I'm saying. It was exactly like an NDE. I know what they're talking about when they're explaining these NDEs, and I can tell you in other countries, even if they have NDEs and explain it in their own religious linguistic or language, they're still trying to describe the same metaphysical or spiritual thing. It's like you're trying to describe something that we don't really have words to describe for in this world.
We do, because they're described. Right? The things that are similar are the things that happen when you experience hypoxia, right? It's pretty clearly lined out. And also the reliability of memory is very clearly shown to be very faulty. So however far away you are from 5, I wouldn't put a whole lot of, and it doesn't even matter at this point because you already accepted that is not enough to convince us.
That's not really what I'm trying to.
Yeah, so do you have something that would convince us? Or it says in the notes you'd like to know if we would repent for refusing to believe. Is that your language?
If you had a experience like I did, let's assume hypothetically that something miraculously happened to you, some angels lifted you out of a car crash, I don't know, something crazy. Mm-hmm. And then you're sure, okay, this is evidence that there is not God, but something supernatural out there that points towards God. Would that lead you to kind of believe and be sorry that you kind of lived your life turning away from God and what and of course I'm assuming this is a Christian God.
I guess I just don't understand the connection between the two, really. Also, I haven't lived my whole life this is relatively new for me. So I'd probably just refer him back to the first 20-something years and be like, hey, well, just take a look at that. But no, so like for me, I don't understand the correlation between beginning to believe in something because I've been given enough evidence and feeling any kind of remorse or, apologetic guilt. For not doing it before. Like I don't understand trigonometry as well as I probably should. But I don't, and if I were taught trig, right, then I would know it. But that wouldn't make me feel bad for having not known it before I was taught it. So for me, I guess that's the gap.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And I guess my follow-on question, can I ask, is, well, can anybody really know God exists?
Well, so it totally depends. And that actually ties into what I was thinking, and that is, you said if I were to have a miraculous experience, right? If I were to have this miraculous experience, then I would try to find some way to independently verify that what I've experienced is real and not that I've had a psychotic break. Because we have tons of evidence of psychotic breaks happening to people who have had no issue of mental illness at all in their lives. It absolutely happens, but we don't have evidence of miracles. And so I would absolutely be a skeptic about it and go, okay, how can I verify this? I would pluck an angel wing or something so that I can go, okay, no, I've got something, right? I need that, because if I don't have that, I can't trust my own memory. That's something that if you take a look at the history of witnesses to crimes and the reliability of that account, it's terrifying how much memory changes just in that small amount of time. And because of that, it's just unreliable. And so
that's not entirely true, though, right? Because even though it's unreliable at the extreme cases of the probability scheme, if you have a bell curve, then you that's just at the really extremes that it's incorrect or really correct. And on average, most of our memory is probably, close to 95% accurate. We can remember things when we were very young. We can remember, how it felt when our mom used to hold us or when our father used to hold us.
Yeah, that's patently untrue, Mike. Mike, that is patently untrue and has been falsified and proven to be false. What do
you mean?
So people have said that for a long time. Freud used to do that crap, and it has been proven not to be true.
That our memory is as accurate as you were saying. When you remember something, okay, so the very first time something happens and you remember it, you are remembering the event, right? The next time you remember it, you are remembering the event. And suddenly there's a gap there between the memory and the event. And every time you think about something that happened to you, you are remembering the last time you remembered it, not the actual event. And that's kind of terrifying. But it's also like that memory is extremely malleable and is completely based on what you've experienced since then.
But I suggest that you.
No,
I suggest you send us some research because this is something that's been studied. Why don't you send it to us and give us a call next week and we can talk about it together? Do you know our email?
Sure. No, I don't. But I'll give you a call next time I have some time, and then we can continue because I feel like we didn't really get to where I wanted to go, but eventually.
Yeah, I highly suggest you do the research on it and send it to us, mail@talkheathen.com, so we can have a more informed conversation. Just in a nutshell, what did you want to get to? Because I try and steer this so it doesn't go off the rails so we can get to the question.
Okay, I didn't want to just jump on it because it sounds a little bit, belittling and whatnot, but really what it is I find a lot of atheists find that they're confusing the notion of knowledge and belief. They think they know things that they actually just believe, and they think it's like, and Jesus says, right, when he's talking to these Pharisees, he's saying the Pharisees he's saying, I came into the world so that the blind can see, and so that those who see may become blind. And the Pharisees ask him, what are you calling us blind? And then Jesus tells them, well, since you think you can see, or quote unquote know, since you think you know, your sins remain. So there's a problem with belief that prevents us from believing in God, and that problem really is our internal arrogance and thinking that we know things we really don't.
Okay. So I absolutely accept that we live in a culture where people are encouraged to pretend that they know something when they don't, or act like they have more confidence in the knowledge of something when they don't have that much knowledge. I think our definitions are off, though, because when you're talking about belief and knowledge, those are things that nest inside of each other. And so the larger circle is belief. And so you're looking at this circle of belief, and everything you believe is in there. Those are things you accept to be true, right? Now, inside of that circle is your knowledge. Now, those are things that you believe, but are also justified and true. And people use different definitions for knowledge, but this is one that I'm going to go with on this one. And so everything that you know, you believe, right? but you can believe something and not know it. I'm making sweeping circles with my arms in the air to try and visualize it. But when you're talking about knowledge and belief, this is my understanding of it. And so I'm having trouble understanding what you're saying because of my definitions.
What I'm saying is that circle of knowledge is probably a lot bigger than it should be within the atheist mind. In reality, that circle is really only what you experience and what you directly know, like you've touched this, your memory really is what you know. And everything outside of that is really just a belief. But a lot of people act like they know things that are just beliefs. Like the Pharisees that acted like they knew they were descendants of God and they knew God wanted them to wash their hands every morning, etc. They had all these rituals that they assumed to know, whereas they didn't really believe in all of it. They kind of assumed that they knew.
All right, I get what you're. I get it.
Yeah,
we're monologuing again. I get it. No, it's okay. I'm trying to, because this is a show, we try and go through it fast. But Mike, who cares? What you're saying, we have knowledge of, and what we take as knowledge. I mean, who cares? What's the point? Are you trying to denigrate the things that we accept?
No,
saying that we know.
I was hoping not to do that.
No, so if that's okay, then this is a pointless conversation.
Yeah, and of course not. That's not what I was hoping to do. It's not denigrate at all. It's just something that I personally always struggled with. And I see that, you guys are a lot like me. I'm a skeptic too. I couldn't believe all that stuff that, I was like, I must be going crazy too, So I'm like a doubter, like Thomas is in the Bible, I guess. I just still can't believe some certain things.
And yet doubting Thomas was put down and was castigated for wanting evidence. Doubting Thomas is true. Right? Well, doubting Thomas is a story in the Bible of a character who was put down and is used as an example of anti-intellectualism. And that is so
from the Catholic Church and then from the religious community. There's been a lot of wrong things done. But
I agree.
At the end of the day, Mike, Jesus appeared to Thomas, right? And Jesus took Thomas to heaven, just like all the other disciples.
Does Mike? Does Jesus love doubting Thomas more than he loves me or V?
I don't think so. No.
Does God love Saul on the road to Damascus before changing his name to Paul and becoming an apostle? Does God love Saul? Did God love Saul more than he loves myself or V?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so how come these are exceptions where God comes and says, no, here is evidence? Well, actually, even Saul's is a vision, so that's...
A little iffy there.
Yeah, true enough. But the doubting Thomas... Yeah, I mean... If that's the case, then I'm waiting for them to show up. I don't think that's impossible to ask, and I don't think it's wrong to ask for actual evidence. I encourage you to work on your skepticism because you're accepting something without having a lot of clear, in my opinion, good reasons why. But we've been on this call for a while, so I think we're going to move on to the next caller.
I appreciate your guys' time. I don't assume to know. It's just what I'm starting to believe. And I hope you guys come closer to that too. Thanks.
Thank you. He used my definition. I don't presume to know everything. That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
All right. So, I forgot to hang up. Did you have anyone in particular you wanted to talk to? I'm going to go with Eric. Eric in Ohio. You're talking to Eric and V.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
How are you guys?
Doing good. Good name, sir.
I'm doing all right. I agree.
So what do you want to talk about today?
So I have an interesting story. I was raised in a Christian household, but not very religious. Eventually became more of an agnostic.
Okay.
But for some reason, I didn't really fit into that community. I attended a few Unitarian Universalist churches, but didn't really find anything in particular. But after the Pittsburgh terrorist attack, I went to my first Jewish Shabbat service and really found meaning there.
So Eric,
that's kind of where I am now.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to give us more of a story. I was going to say, not exactly the format for doing that, but
Right.
Could you sum up what you wanted to ask?
Sure. So my main question is, would it be more useful for agnostics and atheists to spend more time like what the ACA is doing and what Mark Campolo is doing in building a community of non-believers rather than on spending time on why theists might be wrong?
Well, I mean, we're kind of doing both right now. I'm not sure why we would have to choose one over the other. I would say that they are different steps in the same process. So talking about why theism is incorrect or less than appropriately skeptical is the first step to making ourselves known and saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're thinking. If you are like-minded, come join us. If you're not, then come have a debate with us. So that's step one, that's reaching out. And then step two is building a community where people are welcome to come once they find that, you know, the way that we view the world is compatible with the way they do. So yeah, I don't necessarily see it as a this or that type situation.
Right, that's understandable. I think I'm coming from the standpoint that when I started listening to a few agnostic podcasts, really every single episode was why theism was wrong. And I eventually thought to myself, well, if this is the only thing they're going to offer, they're not going to offer more about how to be a better person, then I should probably look elsewhere. And I mean, that's probably my own bias coming into an effect, but I can definitely understand from what the ACA is doing that you're doing both. Mm-hmm. But for others, I've not really seen that.
No, I understand that for sure. Especially if you're going with the kind of old guard atheists who kind of just go after religion all the time. It has its place, but I think that something that inherently theistic society like the U.S. has, and this is probably a bigger conversation for another time, but they seem to connect belief or non-belief with a whole lot of other stuff, with how to be a good person, with how to be in the world, what's your purpose, what's your journey. All of these other questions are kind of glommed onto that first one. With agnostic, atheist, skeptical thought, that's kind of its own deal. So that's all that, you know, if you say you're an atheist, all you're saying is the answer to this one question. And then you have time to go and do all this other stuff and try and figure out, well, is there a moral philosophy that I like that kind of works with this? Is there a personal journey that I feel called to or whatever? Christian-y sneaking in there a little bit. But yeah, I think one of the reasons you might be frustrated with the way that atheist podcasts and shows like this might be approaching it is because you're looking for answers to all these questions when really the only thing that we're talking about is over here.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And it's really, when it comes to some of the skeptical things, it just makes perfect sense. No, people can't rise from the dead. No, right. People can't walk on water. So it sounds like you're almost kicking babies at that point because, you know, obviously they're incorrect.
Well, I mean, I don't think I have anything to add. You just nailed it. I mean, what V said. Sorry. But, I mean, at this point, I'd just be mansplaining what you just said. There's nothing to add. V's got it. And, I mean, I guess things that I can tack on in there are we're individuals that get to choose what we want to do with our time. And that's it means that there are tons and tons of approaches, and sometimes we need every different kind of approach because people are different and what people might accept is different. And the other thing that I kind of wanted to snudge in there mm-hmm. is it's not just about accepting a moral philosophy. It's when I found myself not believing, then all of those other things that were bundled along with my Christianity, all right. of everything that you said, you know, my purpose and my morality and you know, what is my reason for being and all of that, all of a sudden I didn't have it. And then because I didn't have it, I needed to figure out what it was. But I came at it from I see this society wherein we are treating each other ethically and morally, or at least ethically and morally the way I understand it. So why? Why do we do that? Why do humans do that? And then looking at the animal kingdom, we find that it happens in social species. It's all over the animal kingdom. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes why do we act morally and ethically instead of a prescriptive, this is why you're moral, because you have a Jiminy Cricket who tells you. And at that point, you're forsaking your own autonomy. But I think that's the only thing I would add. Otherwise, V, you summed it up perfectly. Does that help?
No, fair enough.
Okay.
I think I might have my own bias as a skeptical person in that I chose faith or just the community more so for the community, not because of the actual story, because the actual story is probably incorrect. And I don't see how anyone could believe that the Bible is inerrant. So, I mean, I might.
Are you saying you're not a believer, but are kind of pretending to be one for the community?
Well, no, it's like, I think people, and this is my own bias, I think people choose to be in religion based on the community, not based on whether the story is true or not. I mean, and I don't mean to preach, but this is what I learned from Judaism. It's that the actual story being true or false doesn't really matter. It's more about how you approach the world in modern times.
I think it absolutely matters. And the next two calls, or in the next few calls, we're going to be talking to Anton and Kevin, and both of those people have given us will be giving us examples of exactly why it matters. And I hope that helps. I hope that you stick around, watch the show on YouTube, and can see that, because there are real effects. Also, if you didn't watch last week's, check out the call with Kamal. It's another very important thing, and that is that when you're basing your community around that belief, that faith, you're creating an in-group, out-group that actually does kick people out, and it has damaging effects. But Eric, I really appreciate you calling in. Thank you.
No, thanks for taking my call, and thanks for the work you guys are doing.
Well, thank you, brother. All right, bye. And with that, Anton in Michigan, you're live with Eric and V. How are you doing?
Hey, good. How about you guys?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, doing well. The caffeine's starting to level out. I'm doing all right. I'm trying to keep a level head. I was getting grumpy for a while there the past couple episodes, but I'm trying to get back to the roots of what makes Talk Heathen what it is. What did you want to talk about today?
So I was raised in a really conservative Christian and also Muslim household. My mother was Christian and my dad was Muslim, but my dad left me when I was 15 years old. But the indoctrination continued with my mother, and I always had questions and doubted it, the whole faith thing, at 12 years of age.
Okay.
So now I'm an agnostic, but I still have trouble coming to terms with the fact that there may be nothing after death.
Sure.
And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I please continue.
So both my mother and dad taught me that so death is always going to be painful. Like during and after you're dead, you're always going to be feeling a lot of pain, and God is going to help you endure it.
Right.
And I believe that I don't believe in heaven or hell. I just don't think it makes sense, any of it. But still, I think about death a lot, and now being an agnostic, it's helped me a lot, accepting death. But I still have trouble accepting that, the pain goes away, like, after you're dead. I know a lot of my friends who are atheists say that it's going to be the same as before you were born. Mm-hmm. And I get that, but, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, this is the root of why religions were, or at least myths about the afterlife were created, was exactly what you're feeling now. This is the oldest question. As soon as we realized and gained consciousness and we're like, oh, there are people that we love that are not here anymore. We can see them, but they're gone somehow. And then someday we are also going to be gone somehow. We need to rationalize this. So this question and this feeling that you're having right now is valid, and it's very ancient. And it's the reason that people hold so strongly to religion today. So first of all, I get it. And so does everybody else. So you're not alone in this fear. But also I would encourage you to do some research on just biology and how we sense pain and how pain is perceived in the brain and exactly what happens in your body when you feel pain. And then what happens when you're dead? Your brain is no longer active. You no longer have the capability to sense these things because pain is not external. Pain is internal. So you have something that happens to you, and it's your brain that says, hey, this is painful, you should stop doing it in order to help you survive. So pain, regardless of whether or not it would physically, scientifically make sense to continue to feel pain, it would be utterly useless because the only reason you feel pain biologically is to keep you alive. So if you're no longer alive, there's no reason your brain would even care anymore.
Right. And there are also people who have experienced trauma and cannot feel, parts of their body or are entirely unable to experience pain. It's a neurological thing.
Right.
I do just want to jump in. My inner skeptic is the alarm went off. It was kind of an all statement. A lot of people experience existential angst. I wouldn't say that is the reason as a reason.
That's fair.
And I absolutely agree. Existential angst is horrifying. And I'm with V. Kudos, we applaud you for jumping in there because it is a scary place. The good thing is you're not alone. This is a perfect time to plug the Discord. I was on the phone with them before the show, and we have an amazing group of people who love to talk about philosophy and life in general, or just gaming or hanging out with each other, whatever the case is. It is a growing community. So if you haven't been to our Discord, I know that it's going to be put in the live chat, and we'll try and pop links up in our social media. Definitely check out our Discord. I think it'd be a good place to interact and get other ideas that you can bounce off of people.
All right. My other question was, you just brought up that a person who doesn't feel pain anymore. How would that person know if he was dead or not? Like, I know that it's not necessary to feel pain to die, if that makes sense. But
I don't think you could know you're dead. But I get what you're saying. But we are the sum of our cognitive function. And there's a whole lot more to us than pain. There is a whole lot more to us than pain. There are some amazing studies of people, children, who are born without the ability to feel pain. So they have to live their entire life terrified of damaging their body because they don't know that they've done it. And so they've got to do body checks and make sure that they haven't cut themselves or broken a bone or something like that. And while that's rough, it's also
right.
a person who's experiencing and is finding their normal and trying to live the best life that they can with what they have.
I would also jump in real quick and suggest that maybe in your agnosticism, you have possibly overlooked a large part of what theology just implicitly states, which is that there is a part of you that is not physical. There is a part of you that lasts longer than your body does. So I would just suggest maybe looking into that a little bit more and seeing how your skepticism can be applied to that area. Because I think if I'm understanding you correctly, the base of your question is, there is something in me or of me that will exist after I am dead, and I will know that I'm dead, or I will be in pain after I'm dead, or there will be an I after I'm dead. And that's not supported by what we understand about the body and the mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, I don't think we have anything else to add. We hope this helps, though, and keep plugging away, man.
I'll definitely check those out.
Yeah, even after the rational goes away, the irrational takes years to get through, because you are talking about indoctrination. I mean, we were promised eternal cake and tummy rubs, and all of a sudden, when you're told you can't have it, even if you were never going to get it in the first place, you still feel this loss. And at least what we can say is, you have the opportunity to have the rest of your life to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve, because you're not going to get another chance. And while that's empowering and scary and all of that, it's still an amazing existence and it's an amazing life, so make the best of it that you can. Tell the people that you love them. And, don't be afraid to go out and make the best of this time that you have.
Yeah. So I'm only 19 years old.
Oh my gosh, 19. Wow. All right, dude, you've got plenty of time.
Right. And my mother, she still asks me to go to church and, do stuff, religious stuff. And ironically, my mother said you would have a harder time accepting death and the afterlife if your faith wasn't strong. But I felt the complete opposite. I feel more accepting of death now that I know, there's no hell, there's no heaven. And at first, it was so hard for me to understand or accept that, all these bad people who rape and murder other people go to heaven just by accepting Jesus. That was so ridiculous to me. And so many religious people molest children, and they also go to heaven. But someone who has been a good person his entire life is going to go to hell simply because he does not accept Jesus as his savior.
Yeah. It's a carrot and stick that I think is an outdated model that we're learning.
Yeah.
We can do a whole lot better. But Anton, I think we're going to move on to the next call, brother. I really appreciate it, though. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
All right. Kind of want to move to Kevin in Florida. Kevin, you're talking to Eric and V. How are you doing?
Hi, Eric and V. I'm doing great. How are you both?
Doing well. What do you want to talk about today?
Good. First of all, I'm a pay it forward guy, and Eric, I want to help you with your coffee problem. As I'm watching your show live now, and if I'm correct, I count 12 coffee cups on your desk, and so that's your problem. So
you know what? With as many mugs, we might as well be broadcasting from a coffee cup factory, wouldn't we? Here's the funny thing: I medically can't drink coffee, so it's not coffee.
Okay.
It's worse. It's super, super strong energy drink, which is just woof. But what did you want to talk about?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, no pressure here, but I want you to help me save some lives.
Okay. What's up?
Let me give you a 30-second background on me, and then I'll direct a kind of a broad question.
Okay.
I'm 58. Been a lifelong, more of a devotional Christian. Went to church and prayed, but more because I think I was afraid to go to hell and wanted to go to heaven. about a year ago, I was forced to confront my faith head on. And it was a fascinating journey. I really, truly wanted to find out what religion I was. And I went from Chris Hitchens to St. Thomas, and back and forth to all these different authors and books, and finally to the Bible. And to my surprise, my faith fell apart, and now I'm a agnostic-atheist.
Serious?
The reason that I was forced to examine my faith was I have a couple of beautiful boys. One's a 19-year-old young man who was on an academic scholarship to a very prestigious college in the South. A great kid, always a searcher, kind of a black and white kind of young man. He wanted the solid answers. He came home one day and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to a Bible study with a friend." And I said, "Great." I mean, it's a lot worse things that he could have been doing.
Sure.
Within 4 months, 3 or 4 months, he had ran away from home. He had dropped out of school, lost his scholarship, had almost no contact with his family or his parents because we were influenced by the devil. Yeah. And the end times were coming, and he needed to save souls. And if we didn't want to be saved, he couldn't have anything to do with us, which was absolutely shocking. So what happened to me was that's when I looked into my faith very deeply, and I was amazed at how many faiths, mostly the Abrahamic religions, are like that. Very, very based in fear, indoctrination. Follow. Only we know the truth. If you don't follow us, you go to hell. That sort of thing. With this church my son is in, it's actually one level worse. It's really more of a cult. And we have been through some of the country's top psychologists, cult experts, and I am just absolutely amazed at how powerful this sort of indoctrination can be. Yeah. The reason that I'm calling is Matt had a podcast where he talked about his relationship with his parents. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you both saw that. And it touched me because I'm in the reverse situation. There is everything we have tried, every way we have tried to plant a seed or plant a seed of critical thinking in my son backfires. And I just, you both, your viewers, I'm wondering, I'm sure you go out and try to gently convince people to think about things all the time. So that's kind of what I'm asking. What are some of the things that you both have used that have made people scratch their heads and say, hey, maybe I should think about this a little bit more?
Well, so first off, I kind of want to address, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing this. When somebody that you love so much, and I mean, you're talking about a child, moves away and is not interested or is not showing interest in contact, that's really, really rough. And I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that, man.
Thank you. It would be much easier if I were a raging alcoholic or someone who had beaten his son or something like that. But this was so amazing is he grew up in a pretty idyllic household. Mm-hmm. And it still the power of this indoctrination, this manipulation of Bible verses, and the fear indoctrination, all that sort of mind control, for lack of a better phrase, has really captured his heart and soul. And I know many people, other people, intelligent young people that have been sucked into this. So,
well, I'm sorry, you wanted to jump in?
I mean, from what I've experienced myself, the way that I keep that door open is to honestly not talk about that necessarily all the time. So I don't know if this is something that you do or not. But for me, and I know that this is something that some people have said works even with the more cult-like groups. The whole point, the whole manipulative aspect of a cult is to keep them away from the people who would convince them back out, right? And so right now, that's what's happening. Your son has probably, I don't know, but probably been told that you guys are going to try and influence him, and that he has to put up that wall. And a lot of people just walk away after that, and they say, okay, you know what, you clearly don't want to interact with me. I will leave you to do what you want to do. And sometimes if you are in danger of being pulled into the cult, that's the best thing to do. But what I would suggest is just be there as somebody who talks about the weather. Be there as somebody who says, hey, had a good day, hope you did too. Read a great book, nothing to do with religion. Here's the recommendation. Very, very simple, completely unobtrusive, completely benign discussion.
And I still love you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that really is something that you have control over. If there's this narrative that you're this corrupting, horrific influence, be there to remind them. And as a parent, I'm sure you know if he were to come back, and I'm going to use religious imagery, which is terrible, but if he came back as the prodigal son with, turned out pockets and said, you know what, I was wrong, you would be there. And the fact that you would be there, the fact that you're saying, you know what, I still love you, that can be incredibly powerful. And just because you don't see the influence of it doesn't mean that it doesn't have an impact, because it absolutely does. And hopefully that helps. If you want to learn more about cults, I know that Genetically Modified Skeptic has done some really, really good videos about cults. And, dude, I wish you the best.
Okay. That's great. Good universal advice. That's the we've proven that talking about religion does not work. So you're exactly right. And yes, the simple love and we'll always be here for you. I think that's the right tack. That's the tack that many of the experts say to follow. So I think we're in good.
Sure. Okay, before we take the next call, and we are taking a religious caller next, I do want to thank those patrons. So if you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com. All right, let's talk to David.
Let's do it.
David, you're talking to Eric and V. How are you doing today? David? David going once in California, going twice. We're popping David back on hold. Who would you like to talk to?
Let's talk to the other Eric. He's been on the line for a bit.
There's a plethora of Erics. Eric in Georgia. You're live on Talk Heathen. How are you doing? Eric in Georgia. All right. We're popping you back on hold, Eric. Third time's a charm? I think Beelzebub sounds like fun. Beelzebub. You're live with Eric and V. How are you doing today? Oh?
No one wants to talk to us.
No. I wonder. I can actually share with you.
Yeah.
So I've been talking to a couple people. One of them is a Christian apologist. Dean Meadows is a guy who's called in before that I actually really adore. He's a Christian apologist. He and I disagree on the religion thing, but that doesn't mean that you can't be friends.
Right.
I'm going to be picking him up this weekend and bringing him to the ACA where he's going to sit in on the show.
Amazing.
And I'm hoping to sit down and record with him privately for my own project to have a long-form discussion. So I'll be announcing that soon. I think
that's amazing.
A ton of fun. So other than that, let's try one more time. David in California, can you hear us? Eric in Georgia? No, we are losing. I think the internet must have gone down. Dylan in California. Be real, Zabab? Okay, then we have, oh my gosh, yeah, the whole system just went and now all 6 lines are ringing like crazy.
Yep.
Good luck with that. We're going to steal this person away from the call screener. Alan in California. Hi. You're live on Talk
Yes.
Heathen.
Am I live now?
Oh, yes.
Hello.
We had an issue with the system. But you're live. You're talking to Eric and V. What would you like to talk about?
Because I was... Oh, yes. So I'm a Christian, and I recognize that there's no way for me to prove that my beliefs exist. There's no way to test it in a lab. So I am stone cold when it comes to the separation of church and state, and also church from the workplace, from education and medicine.
Cheers. So why do you believe it?
So, I'm sorry?
Oh, if it's totally untestable, then why do you believe it in the first place?
I guess the hallucination was that convincing.
But if I told you I had a hallucination or experienced something that I couldn't prove, would you necessarily agree with my experience that that is true or maps to reality?
I would not agree that it's true, and hence why I never try to convince anyone that my perspective is true. It's kind of something I keep to myself.
So why do you have a lower standard of evidence for yourself than for other people?
You got me there.
I mean, that's okay. It's something to think about, but it's just kind of interesting to sit on this side and kind of be like, well, if you don't really, if you think that nobody else would be convinced by it, then why are you? But I'll leave that. You wanted to call in about something else. What did you want to talk about?
Yes, well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a Christian, but I'm stone cold when it comes to not only the separation of church and state, but also keeping religion out of, education, out of medicine, and out of the workplace. And the reason why I watch your show, as well as, I watch R and Raw, I watch all these other atheist YouTubers, is because they're the only community that I find that recognizes, hey, keep religion out of, education, keep it out of medicine, because you get instances like, faith healing.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that puts me. And I also can't understand why so many Christians in the United States, or at least from what I've experienced here in California, seem to want to implement religion in government and in education. There's the Creationist Museum, the Noah's Ark Museum in Kentucky, which I think is reprehensible because it used public funding, to my knowledge.
I was actually down there a few weeks ago at the annual protest for the Ark Encounter. If you take a look, I believe Tri-State Freethinkers on YouTube have a video of me speaking and Aaron Ross speaking a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Well, cheers to that. Is that what you wanted to talk about specifically? I want to be able to roll with you here and have a conversation, but I'm not feeling a lot of meat yet. Alan?
Have you met other Christians like me who recognize separation of church and state and all these other things? And why is it, do you think, from your experience, so many Christians want to implement Christianity into all these factors, such as government and education? Because if I recall, in the Bible, Jesus says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Right. I don't recall Jesus in any of the scriptures, correct me if I'm wrong, advocating that his faith be implemented into government and education. So I'm just curious what your perspectives are on that based on your experience.
Well, that is quite a bit.
There's all that meat you were looking for.
No, that's good. So all we can offer really is speculation because we're not religious, but I can put on my old Christian hat and try.
Right.
And what I remember of it is that I felt like I needed to make decisions on behalf of other people. I felt like if we did not legislate our morality, then our morality would make the world a worse place. And because I had this fallen idea of Earth, that the Earth is full of broken people, that I needed to kind of go in this nanny type way and fix it. And kind of looking at it from this side, it's a really, really, really nasty worldview to have. But I do recall that being the case. What about you, V?
Definitely that for sure. I remember, when you're told that atheists and people of other religions are completely amoral and will do anything and don't have no moral compass, then yeah, it's terrifying to imagine those people in positions of power, regardless of where that power may be. So a lot of it is just the propaganda that is spread about people who are not Christian. But also, I would say that a lot of it was, I didn't even realize I was doing it a lot of the time. I didn't even realize. And looking, how Facebook memories pops up with statuses from 8-9 years ago. Oh my gosh. So
so cringy.
So cringy. So much cringe. But it was unintentional a lot of the time. I think that when you're so ingrained in a religious mindset, you honestly think that this is just the way things work. And it's kind of stupid to imagine anything else working. Duh, of course this is the way to do things. This is how I was taught my whole life. And everyone I know also thinks this. So it's... And
everyone, that piece, everyone I know is
right.
Also... Because... I can tell you that I had a really, really good talk with a couple Jehovah's Witnesses. They were at my door. They were talking. We were talking the Bible and all of that. And I asked them specifically about this kind of dominionist view. I said, do you want to legally, change things such that Christianity becomes the faith of the country? And they said, absolutely, we absolutely do. And I asked them about education and things like that. And they said, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I said, but why though? You're in the minority. They're not going to take your version. And their faces fell. And they never came back.
Wow.
So, yeah, I know, right? Because it does. It's that exactly. It's everyone else feels exactly like I do. No, they don't. No, they absolutely don't. And your flavor of Christianity can be very, very different from another flavor. I'm sure there are plenty of Christians, Alan, who could tell you're not a real Christian because you're not following X, Y, and Z. Right?
Oh, yeah. The no true Scotsman fallacy.
Absolutely.
Yep. And also there's this is probably a minority group of people, but there's the whole idea that, the whole world must be saved and redeemed before the second coming can happen. And so a lot of people are probably approaching it in this way where it's like, okay, well, if we all need to be Christian before Jesus comes back, then, we may as well legislate it.
Yeah, absolutely. But Alan, I hope that helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry for interrupting, but
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
To touch on what she said, be saved before Jesus comes. Isn't it kind of ironic how most Christians say that you can accept Christ on your deathbed and go to heaven, but by that logic, shouldn't I be able to accept Christ right as he's coming back to quote unquote, destroy the world?
Right.
Right. And you can go down that whole rabbit trail that there are stories in the Bible of people physically encountering God and still having the choice to accept or reject that God, even with them directly in front of them. Mm-hmm. And yet people say, oh, God needs to be hidden because we need to make a choice. No, you can make a choice even if you see that God in the flesh right in front of you or whatever. You can have irrefutable evidence and still choose not to accept that God. So that, yeah. But otherwise, that's just our experience. All the rest is presupposition. But hopefully that helps. I mean, I'd love to hear from a Christian, what they, another Christian, what they think.
Yeah.
But regardless, I can say we both really appreciate that you are where you are, because we can share that world together. We're not wanting to take away your faith, and I think you know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, and one last thing before I go.
What's up?
The one reason why I'm really strong in this separation of church and state thing is because I find it really insulting to my intelligence when, I know intelligence, a Christian talking about intelligence. I find it insulting to my intelligence when Republicans are always trying to, quote, we're going to bring back God into government, vote for me because I also share the same Judeo-Christian values. I'm like, you're just trying to get my vote. You think I'm going to buy into it that quickly? Like, come on. And also forcing religion into education to, quote unquote, brainwash these kids, because that's essentially what they want to do. I thought Jesus wanted you to follow him based on your own personal faith, that you chose to do so because you were convinced by a hallucination or whatever, not because someone else told it to you. So what should I label myself? Should I label myself like a Christian separatist, or like, I don't know what to label myself.
Alan, the label really doesn't matter. What's important is that you're putting in the hard work of thinking about it. And I hope that you keep listening to the shows, because I think that the way we approach things in a skeptical way can hopefully help give you tools to help out in other places in your life, that it really is beneficial when you try and pull out all of the stuff that really doesn't work. And you can arrive at a clearer worldview when you're more methodological in your approach. But with that, I think we're going to move on to the next caller.
All right. Well, thank you both. You have a good one.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say real quick?
Yeah.
I know so many intelligent Christians, okay? that hurt my heart when he made that joke. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to imagine I was an intelligent Christian when I was one.
Right.
That's not by any means what we're trying to get at ever.
No.
That because you hold a worldview that reflects on your intelligence as a whole, there's probably just, a couple things you need to think about a little bit more.
I absolutely agree. Just your position on that one thing does not at all talk about. Okay, you're right. Sorry, I'm just rambling. Yeah, you're right. 2 or 3?
3.
Okay. David in California. You're talking to Eric and V. How you doing?
Hey, I made it on. Hello.
Hello.
It works. Yay.
Yeah. What would you like to talk about?
Hi. I guess my takeoff point here is going to try to be the irreducibility of consciousness. And
how do you define consciousness, first of all? That way we're on the same page.
That's one of the more mysterious things that we're encountering right now. Mayla, sweetie, I'm on the phone real quick. That's my daughter. Sorry. Consciousness is one of those things that is a mysterious thing for us to try to define. And in fact, it is kind of like the holy grail of both neurobiology and philosophical studies, is to try to find a causative mechanism for how physical processes are able to produce this rich and multivalent consciousness. And
I wholeheartedly disagree.
Well, there's been a number of different attempts. We've had, the Churchlands. We've had people like Antonio Damasio. We've had the Daniel Dennett with his eliminative, reductionism. We've had John Searle breaking it into different ontological categories. We've had some classical philosophers like Wittgenstein that point out that content is.
So let's zero in here a little bit, okay?
Sure.
Bring you kind of where we live, or at least where I live on it. I don't know where you are on it. Sorry, I'm talking to V. So where I'll start with is, we know what consciousness is not. We can identify when someone is unconscious or when a thing is not conscious. We can also determine that consciousness requires a brain, right? So you move from there.
That's a philosophical position, but I will
Can you name?
go with it.
Oh, well, otherwise I'd ask you, can you give me an example of something that's conscious without a brain?
Well, the thing is that anything that is observable is always going to have to be measured by one centralized subjectivity, which it, in fact, is, once again, irreducible.
Okay, what do you mean by irreducible? Because I can think of a lot of things that change from brain damage in the way a person behaves and reacts.
Yes.
So,
you're absolutely right.
So what is irreducible about it?
Okay, give an example here. Sure. You were talking to a gentleman a couple of calls ago, and we were trying to, I believe your partner there was trying to provide a kind of explanation of pain and reducible to actual physical, causations that are found within the nervous system. Now, the example that was given was a person that actually lacks the ability to experience by some mutation or deformity or some accident. They cannot experience physical pain. Yet, as you put it, they feel a kind of, what you had defined earlier as a kind of terror, a sort of anticipation of what the possible future might hold, and types of pains that I am not even capable of receiving.
Well,
now that is a continental position and is really fascinating. It might sound a little bit like a word salad, like in the way that Jordan Peterson put. That's kind of the problem with continentalists, is because we're trying to say something that is so unbelievably simple. Okay. But in the actual rendering of it, I have to put it in the language that conforms to these kind of epistemic, skeptical categories that actually are setting up the conditions in advance that would deny any evidence of God whatsoever.
Well, we're not trying to deny the evidence of God. You understand that, right?
No,
we're trying to evaluate it.
Yes, and in our evaluation, we want to actually, if we want to be good skeptics, then we need to hold our own methods accountable by the same standard.
Agreed.
This is something that Bertrand Russell came up with this. Well, he didn't come up with it. He reformulated it. But you actually find this also in ancient forms of skepticism in the West, namely with the schools of Pyrrho, but also
David,
in the East. You find that in the East.
Hey, David, I feel like we're moving into we're kind of bouncing all over the place. We started by wanting to talk about what is consciousness. Now, I can give you a definition. Consciousness is an emergent property of having a brain.
Well,
and so would you say that it's different? And could you give me a definition that we can use without giving us a whole stack of books we need to read? Because one definition is functional, the other, not so much.
Okay. Consciousness, always in its actual appearance, if I'm going to try to give a definition of this, which is very dangerous, if I'm going to try to do that, consciousness is something which always speaks and always is in reaction to more than what it could possibly give an account for. Consciousness is that which in its actual existence is answerable to things already that it cannot give physical account for. The moreness is what gives you consciousness.
Okay.
That's the idea.
Can I rephrase it?
You're nothing but a conglomerate of physical processes.
Whoa!
None of them have...
David, stop.
Okay.
I'm stopping the brakes right there.
Sure.
Otherwise, you are nothing but a conglomerate of physical processes. So what?
Yes.
If we are a conglomerate of processes, if all I am is a brain and a brainstem and a body and a gut, which bacteria, by the way, has a huge impact on everything about my consciousness. But regardless,
I'm with you.
To say, oh, well, you are nothing but this conglomerate of separate pieces. So what? Does that make it less true?
No, it certainly doesn't.
Should it scare us off?
No, it doesn't. But there is a strange thing that you're absolutely right.
And can I reformulate your? I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, and so I'd like to kind of parrot back to you what I got from what you said. That way, we're still operating with the same definitions. It appears that what you're saying is there's a ghost in the machine, right? That our consciousness is something that is not accounted for by brain activity, body activity. That there's something separate and extra to which there is no other explanation but the existence of something like a soul?
I'm not, because that's a kind of substantive reduction, which I don't subscribe to.
Why not?
What I'm saying, because I'll give you an example, a metaphor. It would be like trying to explain the reason why I'm traveling to my daughter's wedding in terms of the mechanical functionings of the engine of the car I'm driving. Now, that's an absurdity. The fact is that we are not beings that exist on this, level of deterministic physical processes, because we are not things that are just caught in the matrix of stimulus and response. If that were so, if that were actually so, then there would be nothing there would be nothing that could bring me to any kind of consciousness of myself.
How did you come to that conclusion? So here's the thing.
This is the continental. The whole continental point is
David,
wrapped up in just this one.
What I'm trying to say here is what you've given is a very, very kind of. What I'm getting from this is you're saying we're just so much more than the sum of our parts.
It's qualia, basically.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Qualia. The qualia is something that is locked out of
sorry, I gave him more ammunition.
No, actually, that's wonderful because it's a teaching moment, and for people who are watching, that is qualia.
Yeah.
You have arguments of what does it mean to be a bat? Is a really famous piece.
Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah. You could have a bat, and you could have everything that you know. You would have a perfect neuroscience of how a bat could.
But you wouldn't know what it means
phenomena
to
and
be a bat.
But you wouldn't know what it was because you wouldn't have the qualia.
Who cares?
The reason why is because
David, but who cares? I mean, so if the thing is, if we can map all of those things out and there's nothing left over, then there's nothing to account for. And until such time as you can show that there's extra to account for, then we're going to use Occam's razor to cut that off and go, you know what? What is enough? What is necessary is already accounted for. You go back to I know it's fictional, right? Laplace saying, I have no need of that hypothesis. Mm-hmm. I have no need of the extra because it's not necessary.
I'm familiar with all of this stuff here.
Sure.
What you're talking about here is you're saying that we could have this exhaustive aggregate of information that would exhaust it to such an extent that it would leave no remainder.
Sure.
Now, what we're saying on this side of it is saying, no, there is a remainder. There's one that is perpetually hidden from science.
What is that?
And that thing is the first-person subjectivity that measures all things and is that epistemic standard by which all transcendentals can come into being. Now, that's a big word salad.
Hold on. No, David, we're following you, but we're also in a format where we're trying to pace the show and then get to other callers as well. So that's why we're trying to direct the conversation. We're not trying to be rude or anything, but we're trying to get to some good conversation. And V Woods.
My question is, if it's perpetually hidden, if it's perpetually hidden from science, how do you know it exists?
Because it is felt the same way that pains or any kind.
We can measure pain.
Right.
Hold on, we can measure pain, and we can show that without a central nervous system, you don't have pain. So, no, you cannot use pain as an example. That is actually an example in the opposite direction. We can account for pain. Try again.
But that's not the argument I'm making. I'm asking you to account for the angst and your fear. I'm asking you to account for that, and you cannot rely on physical processes alone. That's the argument.
Okay, so if you're saying I cannot experience the brain state of another or another creature or something like that, has nothing to do with existence. It has everything to do with your subjective take on it. But I don't need to understand everyone else's subjective take to be able to. Go ahead.
No, I think you're getting it. I think you're getting it mixed up. I think what you meant to say that it has nothing to do with God and everything to do with existence.
No.
And I would agree with you on that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because you can be an atheist and take this position.
Yes, that's true.
And so what I'm saying is it has nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with actual things that exist in the real world. Now, we can argue about things that exist in hypothetical worlds, but that doesn't mean that it has any actual value in the world that we're in. I understand that you have a subjective view of the world that I'm never going to experience, right? But we could talk about the Matrix.
No, because what actually is the thing which is giving, you brought up value. What actually is possibly imbuing value is not only, the hypothetical idea that God is here and somehow invests ethical understanding and is the basis on which morality and all that crap comes into existence.
Sure, I like all that crap. It says you're a theist.
Oh yeah.
Are you a religious person?
I kind of am, but that doesn't, I'm not precluded from swearing and saying this is a bunch of bullshit over here and what this guy's saying is crap.
All right, well, I'm totally cool with that. But
my background and what I argue for is not for religion. I don't even make arguments for God because of the reasons that I've already laid out. Sure. However, there are mystical there are representatives of the mystical tradition all the way up, and Sam Harris, that goofball, is into some of this stuff. I think he screws it up, and so does Jordan Peterson. But there are skeptical forms of mysticism that escape the strictures of science.
No, it doesn't.
Modern Western science, because it itself.
It doesn't, though, David.
Philosophical position. Well, a lot of people are not aware of the arguments that go on, for instance, between Karl Popper and Thomas Kuhn on exactly what is science. Are we
okay, David?
Are we talking in terms of falsifiability?
Right, David.
Are we using as a rubric a kind of
hey, David.
What's the term I'm looking here?
Brother.
Yes.
I can have this conversation for 20 hours, but we're we're going wide. Shoot me an email, mail@talkheathen.com. I want to continue this conversation.
Hey, give me your email and I will do that.
Mail@talkheathen.com. This may have absolutely glazed a lot of people over, but I love this. So I'm glad that you called in, and I do want to hold. I also want to hold your feet to the fire and go. If you don't feel like you can argue for your theism, why do you accept it? But I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. No, Dave. I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. Shoot me a mail at talkheathen.com.
I can do that. I can argue my theism. But
oh, dear, sweet baby Jesus. This is going to be a good conversation. Give me a call. I'll talk to you later. Okay, buddy?
All right, cool, man. See ya.
Thank you. I kind of want to talk to two.
Okay, let's talk to two.
All right. Glenn in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
You're live with Eric and V. Hi. What would you like to talk about today?
I wanted to talk about my atheist, mostly male theory.
Your atheist, mostly male theory. What is that?
That's right. That atheists, just like males, mostly use logic and reason, whereas religion, mostly like females, tend to use feelings and emotions.
Okay.
Some Jordan Peterson shit right here.
Yeah, that is a broad generalization that I don't know is useful. Can you give me an example where that generalization would be useful? Because honestly, most of the women in my life are not ruled by emotion. In fact, most of the women in my life are freaking brilliant. Why would I? It feels like you're kind of condescending a bit, doesn't it? That you would condescend to say that women are somehow lesser?
No, I didn't say which is better or which is worse.
Not lesser, it's different.
Oh, is that it?
That's right.
It's atheistic complementarianism. That's what that is.
Well, obviously the men and women are differently and think differently, and women just tend to use more emotions and logic. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, whereas men generally use more logic and reason. Of course, there are exceptions to that.
Can I ask you a question, Glenn?
Sure.
In religion, what is the population of men in power and perpetuating religion versus women in power and perpetuating religion?
Oh, I'm sure the men have more power. That's the way things go.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take this, when I first learned that atheists are mostly male, that's when I came up with this.
Okay. Did you use any other kind of analysis to come to this conclusion, or was that basically the first thing you jumped to?
Well, once I heard that atheists were mostly male, then I started thinking why. Mm-hmm. And then I used logic and reason to come up with this, since I'm a male.
Got it.
So do you think that... Sorry about that. That is incredibly sexist. Sexist to a degree that I'm having trouble comprehending why. So do you think women could not come to that conclusion?
No, you're saying it's sexist.
No, I just asked you a question, Glenn.
Inferior. Wait,
Glenn.
Let me finish, because you think that it's inferior that women speak with more or think more emotionally and with feelings. But I didn't say it's better or worse.
You know, the only difference between male and female is that which we ascribe to it. They're descriptors, but who we are cognitively, the pieces that matter besides our biology. How have you come to a conclusion that way? Because honestly, all I see is the perpetuation of a stereotype that has been existent in our society for so long that it's been used to denigrate. And so I'm being strong on this because I feel like without being strong on this, we are perpetuating a horrendous stereotype that I want to squash.
Well, then you're saying that females are lesser because they think that way. I'm not. There's a place for females to think that way, and that's what makes the world go round. But men and
Glenn,
women are different.
Glenn, okay. So let's be very clear, right? I said this feels this way, or it appears that this point makes this, that this point would say this. At no point did I say, Glenn, you think women are lesser. You can go back and listen. Okay. I use those words very specifically. Okay. And what you just said is, Eric, you think women are lesser because, and then you gave your, so that is.
Well, you used the term condescending.
It is. It is condescending.
Okay, I didn't call it that. I just was stating the differences and not being condescending at all. I think you were the one using that approach.
No, so stating the differences without evidence, stating the differences by, I mean, dude, what the hell?
How could you account for the mostly male atheists?
52% of atheists are women because 52% of the population is women. It's just the case. It doesn't add up that way. No, it doesn't add up this way because of people like you, Glenn. It doesn't add up that way because we have people who are perpetuating this fucked up patriarchal stereotype, which creates an unhealthy place for women. That's what we're fighting against. It is one of the things that makes it difficult, Glenn, it is one of the things that makes it difficult for us to have women in the movement. It's because of that. We got to start by fucking letting that go.
No.
Do you understand the massively fucking detrimental view that is?
Women in the movement should get more respect because they overcame their feelings and emotions and think more with logic and
reason. Would you like to? It's right here.
I feel like that would be an emotional response, Eric.
Is it? I you know what? I can determine that the best place to go, because we are being exemplars, is to say, get fucked. You're dropped. What the actual fuck?
And this was refreshing. That was bracing. The caffeine had worn off, and now I'm back.
Right? All right. These are people in the atheist community.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. This is why. And okay, so let's real quick.
Yeah.
Jump to some other conclusions about why maybe there are more men in the atheist community.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Maybe men are usually given the opportunity to go to college in Christian circles and jump to a more skeptical mindset because they are not being held basically prisoner in their own home in order to become baby makers. That could be one reason.
Absolutely.
How about that women in general feel like they value community more? It's not necessarily an emotional thing, but let's just say that women value community more. And
I'll challenge you on that, but that's okay.
I'm making a supposition. This is
Okay,
not
okay,
my
okay.
position. We're just throwing stuff out there because we're all being rational here and jumping to conclusions with the first bit of information we have.
No,
right?
no.
That's what we're doing.
Oh, gosh.
How atheists work, right, Glenn?
No. We're building this community together, and the fact is, you're right on that first piece, though, is out of the people who walk into this building, the majority of people who've been denied an education are women. And finding your way out and then realizing that you've been given a handicap in society because of the faith of that cause, is drastically going to hurt your ability to succeed in the future. And that does translate. And on top of that, you have rapists and you have creepers and you have just horrendous people who come in and make it unwelcome. And we're working to fix that. We are working to fix that. I think V can at least attest a little bit. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
We're trying here.
Oh, yeah.
I know here at the ACA it's about 50-50, so.
This is an amazingly supportive community. So, atheist women out there, you're welcome here.
Cheers. All right, let's move on to, oh my goodness, okay. Eric in Georgia. It has been a day of Erics. What would you like to talk about?
Erics all around.
Right? All the Erics.
Jesus tried to stop my call, but I called back using the power of science.
Glad you called in. What's up, brother?
Yeah. First of all, man, with the Kamal call, that pulled on my heartstrings.
Oh, yeah.
That was, I hope you guys find him some community, because I'd tear up. Like, that was rough. Man. But with the question, how much time do I have?
So we are actually overtime, so we're trying to just shoot through, but that's okay. What's up?
Gotcha. Well, I got a question, but it's kind of a rhetorical one. I don't know the best word for it, but I already know the answer for it. I just wanted to kind of put it out there, but I have a little bit of a story to tell.
If you can summarize it quickly, if not, then we can take the call next week. It's up to you.
Nope, I can do it real quick.
You got it. Go for it.
So I've been talking to a coworker, talked to his pastor, and they're kind of giving me a chance to speak at their church with him, have a conversation.
Nice.
And so the question was, would that be counterproductive? I know it won't be, but can I be giving them ammunition to convert fence-sitting atheists? I know that us having these conversations is more chance to also convert them, or, have that conversation, that productive conversation. But, what do you think about that?
Can I ask a question? Is this going to be, what kind of address is this? Is this going to be a conversation with other people on stage? Or are you given the mic and people just say, go ahead? Do you know the format at all?
Yeah, I haven't ironed out the details. We've talked about it, but it would be more of a conversation, just me and him sitting down, maybe some planned out questions, maybe some audience questions. They have these kind of, forums or, things that go on in the fall time.
Okay.
So we're working that out.
All right. On the one hand, I would say to go for it because there are statistically atheists in that community who are going to show up and maybe haven't felt seen or heard or even know that it's an option. And just seeing you there on stage will help them feel more seen and help them maybe have the strength to come out to themselves, to others. On the other hand, I don't want you to jump into something feeling like this is being put on you. And if you don't do this, somehow you are bad atheist or giving up on an opportunity to help others. If you feel confident in this format,
feel comfortable.
Okay, because that's the one thing I know. Sometimes churches may prey on that concept of, oh, well, you're an atheist, come debate me, and then, try and use that to...
They're really curious.
Okay. Well,
really curious. That's what I like in the conversation.
Okay. Well, I would say go for it if you feel comfortable.
And bring the best you have, but don't kick yourself if you have any issues. That actually reminded me, there are people who, because I talk about the fact that I have clinical depression, that people have reached out to me in crisis.
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that is, I'm so sorry you're in the suckiest club ever. But I feel you, brother.
I get it. We're cool.
Yeah, it's shit. But people reach out to me in crisis. And there are times when I do my best to reach back, but I can't get to everybody. And I can't.
You've done well with me. You've reached back to me. I've messaged you.
I know.
You've always answered me. But you're awesome, man.
But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And if somebody does, follow through with, suicide, just because they reached out and just because I tried doesn't mean that I had to be the sole person who stopped them.
Yeah.
That if talking to me gave them a day, that I need to be okay with that. And in the same way, you can't take on responsibility for other people that way. Do the best that you can, but nobody's asking you to be, the atheist to end all atheists. You are the one big person. Give it your best shot, but recognize that you're very limited and that you should apportion the responsibility you feel for it to that limit. Do it. Do your best. And don't be afraid to screw up or anything like that. Put yourself out there. I think that's really brave. And I think that, as V said, you can help other people recognize that they don't have to believe that those people exist.
There are people out there.
Yeah. But
yeah, I'm kind of in that camp. I want to help. I want to reach out to maybe even recovering from religion and help out with, even call screen, moderating, whatever. Is there any advice for that? People who want to do stuff like that you can give?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, oh my goodness, there are lots of things you can do. You can reach out on Facebook if you want to moderate, if you want to help moderate with Facebook. If you want to hop into Discord, I suggest you do it regardless and see if they need any help. If you want to help on that broader scale, I know that the Hotline Project is always looking for people. So check out the Hotline Project.
Yeah.
That's recoveringfromreligion.org, right?
Classes?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, do you have to take classes? I mean, what goes on with that?
They train you.
Okay.
And it's actually really good training, regardless of what you do with it. It does help a lot. And it is because what you're doing is
communicating with people.
Exactly. It's peer support. Yeah. So if you want to do that. Oh, and I just got word from the back. Volunteer at atheist-community.org is an email that you should check out or send that to, because I messed up and didn't say volunteer at atheist-community.org. That said, I think we're going to move on. But Eric, best of luck to you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. I appreciate the advice. You guys are awesome.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, yes.
I will. Well, I mean, it's talk heathen, so I'll try to go back.
All right, sounds good, man.
I have a good topic.
Oh.
All right.
All right, bye. That is a consideration not everybody gives. They go, I want to tell my life story. I don't know if it's a good topic for the show.
Yeah.
That's okay. We're going to move on to Mike in Texas. Mike, are you close by? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm about 2 hours away, probably.
Have you been to the ACA?
No,
Why not?
We're going to make a trip up there, but we never have made it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah. So
I really wanted to come to the bat
the
showing,
bat cruise.
I don't think we're going to be able to make it.
Well, we're still here. You're always welcome to drop on by. But regardless, what did you want to talk about? I know we're running short on time.
Yeah, no, I'll try to be quick. So I really want to talk about the pain that Christianity either knowingly or unknowingly causes with their little platitudes like God has a plan for everything or everything happens for a reason. and their lack of recognition for the need for mental health care. I know you're really short on time, but you have about maybe a minute and a half to explain why this is so important to me.
Yeah, go right ahead. I think this is an important story to tell. Just try and keep time in mind.
Oh yeah, it's quick. I may have to read some of this so that I don't break down. But
go ahead, brother.
When I was 16, it was actually 13 years ago. This last Friday, I had a really bad car wreck. I fell asleep at the wheel on the way to work, and overcorrected into oncoming traffic. And it ended up in a head-on collision at about 60 miles an hour. And the driver that I hit ended up being a member of the Baptist church that we went to and I grew up at. And really one of the only things I remember is on the way to the hospital, over the radio, hearing that the other driver was dead on scene. Long story short, from that point forward, I battled just such immense guilt that it took me about 10 years before I was able to stop just beating myself up mentally every day. Throughout all of this, I was never taken to an actual psychiatrist or made to get therapy. But I was, however, pushed into talking to several pastors and forced to continue to go to the same church every week that his wife, friends, and family were still members of, which just ripped this wound open that I was battling even further than I thought imaginable. Every single week I was met with, God has a purpose for this, or this is part of God's plan and he'll use it for his glory. And I just want to say to any Christians listening that is the worst thing you can ever say to someone that's going through such guilt and pain. I spent the next 10 years buried in my self-hatred and burdened with this idea that not only did I have to figure out, but live up to some grand plan that God had for me, since, if it's something someone had to die for, then it must be something important. Of course, the icing on the cake was the guilt that I was feeling for being the cause of someone's death. It took me deconverting before I was able to realize just how ridiculous this extra guilt I kept throwing on myself with this whole concept of God having a purpose for this, and it was just sick and disgusting. I don't know. It's important to me that Christians know how painful some of the things that they can say to people are without realizing it.
Yeah. And we don't often have people call in with their own stories just to tell them, but this is one people need to hear. Mike, I'm so sorry that you went through that. I hope that you're on the path to recovery. We're pulling for you, man. I hope you can drop by the ACA sometime. I want to give you a hug.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in. So much love from Austin. We care about you, and I know that I see it in the live chat too. You're getting love rings from the back.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
It's a rough time right now, but I'll get through it.
We're pulling for you. I hope you call again. I definitely would love to check in on you.
Awesome.
Also, hop into the Discord if you'd like. If you want to talk to people, you feel comfortable doing that. I know.
I've been on there a little bit today.
Oh, good. They're a pretty good bunch. And they're very supportive, and sometimes just having people to talk to and be around who aren't going to give you those bullshit platitudes is wonderful. And hopefully that helps.
Right. All right. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Ooh. I know, right?
Yeah.
We get those, and I usually get that as an email. Where people say, these platitudes are just the twisting this knife that, I'm already dealing with this, and to be able to, and for somebody to say, I'm praying for you. God's, this is part of God's master plan, that I just can't. I see this, and what do you say? The best thing you can do for somebody in mourning who's grieving is to be there for them. And if you are in that process of grieving, even if you're not consider getting therapy. KDB just donated $20. Sorry, it just popped up and says, I hope you find peace of mind. You're getting a lot of love in the live chat because really, man, what you need is therapy, time, community. And if you're not able to get it where you are, we're here. You don't even need to come to Austin. We're building it. And there's room for you here. No guilt, no shame, just friendship and growing family. Speaking of family, I want to end on a positive note. Can we move to the crew cam? Because our producer, Mark Vandebrake, who I'm asking to move to the crew cam, in the upper left corner. Can we point at Mark? We're celebrating Mark's birthday.
Woo!
Can we sing together? Because I absolutely want to embarrass him on camera. Are we ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mark. Happy birthday to you. Mark, we get to celebrate you. And even, you're here working on your birthday. Dude, we just want to say we love you, we celebrate you. We couldn't go if it wasn't for everything that all of you in the back do. But Mark, I'm proud to call you my friend. Much love, man. Do you think it's about time?
I think so.
I think we can direct people over to Atheist Vanguard after this, because 3 o'clock, part 5 of the Tommy McMurtry saga is happening at 3 o'clock.
Aaron Ra's going to be on there.
Is he?
Yeah.
Ooh, all right.
Be exciting.
But that said, do you want to throw up the love rings?
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So, to those of you who don't believe, this is your community. We're here. We're listening. And we're glad that you made it. But to those of you who do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong. See you next week.